A huge thank you to our show sponsors, Southern Maryland Relief in Mechanicsville. Southern Maryland Relief offers deli-style concentrates and flower. If you are new to cannabis and are looking to try out new strains, definitely deli style is the way to go because you can purchase the smallest quantity and test it to find out what works for you. But really what makes Southern Maryland Relief unique is their commitment to the community, and it shows with every single interaction. A great time to stop by is weekends, where if you bring a friend in, you both will get 20% off. You can learn more at somedrelief.com and visit the team at 28105 Three Notch Road in Mechanicsville, or give them a call at 301-242-3200. Interested in learning more about medical cannabis? Herbology is here to help. Contact one of their locations and they will guide you through the entire process. It's a rainy day here in Maryland, and if you are out of medicine, Herbology can help you as well. Herbology of Maryland, serving patients in Carroll County, Montgomery County, and surrounding areas. Save 10% off of your first delivery when you order today. You have to have a minimum order of $40. You can call the Westminster store at 443-487-4552 or Gaithersburg at 240-654-0911. And you can stop by either of the locations located in Westminster or in Gaithersburg. Visit myherbology.com for more details. And Herbology, dream in green. If you are in the restaurant or cannabis industry, you will want to meet me at Pure Life on Tuesdays for Industry Day. There you will get 25% off your order. Some restrictions apply, so come and visit them at 35 East Cross Street in the heart of Federal Hill, right across from the newly redesigned Cross Street Market. And you can visit them at purelifebaltimore.com. I will see you on Tuesday. The podcast today is brought to you by the creative group at Evermore Cannabis Company. Evermore is responsible for some of the most unique cannabis in the Maryland market. What I love about Evermore is their focus on quality and procedure to ensure that the patient experience is unique and rewarding. Some of their newly released flower strains are Orange Fruit Snacks, Big Lemons, and Airborne Skunk. And if you've not had their discos, Pink Lemonade and Raspberry are out. The Raspberry are my favorite, and they were critical to me getting any sleep after my shoulder surgery. So when you're ready for more Evermore, stop by their conveniently located dispensary at 1636 Reisterstown Road in Pikesville, Maryland, off the 695 Beltway, exit 20. And you can visit them at evermorecompany.com. I have some exciting news to share. Did you know that you can have your hemp tested and your CBD products tested in Maryland? I just sent over a CBD product to Atlantic Test Labs. So it's a product that I'm wanting to start using with my dad. And testing is simple, safe, and accurate with Atlantic Test Labs. Send your CBD product to be tested at atlantictestlabs.com and use MJTalks10 to get 10% off of your hemp testing. I will get all my results back shortly, and we will share them on air. The Cannabis Science Conference is back in town April 6th through 8th, and I'm hoping I will see you there as we do some live episodes from there as well. However, my first and most favorite day of the Cannabis Science Conference is the boot camp, where we get to see our most favorite plants in person. The passion and energy that you feel from speakers, from other cannabis enthusiasts, patients, anyone there is contagious, and it makes it such an exciting event, and I am super excited that this will be my third time going. I hope to see you there, and if you would like 25% off your tickets, go to CannabisScienceConference.com and use the code MJ25. Hope to see you in April. I met James in the spring of 2019, and despite being in the best health of my life, I still felt sick, anxious, and depressed. And over the course of the last year, him and I have worked together. And week by week, we have been able to create meditation and mindfulness practices to help me set up my best day. We've been able to discover what foods help my body perform best. And my work with James has been transformational to my life, and it has provided me a strength and a courage to live the life that I want. And so James works with newly diagnosed individuals or people who have had a diagnosis for years. So if you suffer from chronic pain or illness, James Hyland, my holistic wellness coach, can help you out. You can email him at james@sparkvisionnow.com. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, everyone, wherever you're listening to this right now. It's actually a rainy Friday night in Baltimore. It's February 7th, and I can't think of another place that I would rather be, right here at Tuck Media. So you may be asking yourself, where's the guest? So because of our amazing sponsors and the community's reaction to the podcast, we've been able to add an additional, I don't know if you call it feature or a segment, where it helps us keep the podcast a little current. So maybe you don't know that a lot of our episodes are recorded 2 months in advance. And so one of the lessons I've learned over these first 10 episodes is that 2 months after you record something, maybe there's some updates that need to be made. Maybe I have some thoughts or some extra opinions about things. And so this allows us to add a little more excitement, maybe some more current things happening in cannabis. So I'm excited to be here. So later on, you will see my two good friends, Josh Casson and Andre Savoy. But before we see them, I want to talk about some things that have been on my mind. So first, let's talk about what this segment is going to be and maybe what it's not. So first part is anytime you guys want to have a question, you can send it to me. In fact, on Instagram, you'll see I've posted a phone number that you can call and leave a voicemail that will play. So any questions or comments, thoughts or ideas, you want to get your opinion out there, this is now definitely a time to do it. Also a way to communicate upcoming events and things that are happening in the community. Always important cannabis news as it comes out, if it's relevant to what our mission is. And then, of course, who else knows what could happen. So, we'll put the phone number up and you can give it a call if you have a question, leave a voicemail. We will play it on air. Or you can send me an email at jill@themaryjanemagazine.com. And of course, DM me on Instagram, Jill Mary Jane Mag, or on Facebook, and we will air it the next time. So you will get to see this in front of every single show. So last night, maybe some of you attended the Spark networking event. Maybe some of you have no idea what that is, but it is a cannabis networking group in Maryland. And last night was their legislative networking event. And in that event, I'm not going to talk about exactly what the legislation was that came out, because that is not my expertise, and I will mess it up and I will cause mayhem by starting rumors. What I do want to talk about is kind of the overall sense and feeling that I got about what's happening in cannabis. And so David Moon was a representative that was there. And I think it's something that we talk about a lot in cannabis is medical cannabis versus adult use. And as he talked about these measures and, kind of laid out the fight that's ahead for adult use legalization, as well as the continuing of the medical program to allow homegrown, to make sure that patients have a compassionate care fund so that those who don't have the money can get their medicine. So outside of those things, I feel like when I hear about this, it feels like almost a battle of two groups against one another, that these two things can't coexist. And so I just want to talk about my opinion, and you can leave your opinion and use all the ways to communicate with me to share it. But I think these things can coexist. And I think that we need a medical program just as much as we need an adult use program. And I think if we do medical right and we do right by medical patients, then we set up for an amazing adult use program that allows for profitability in a way that medical never should. And so I'm excited for that. What I am most cautious about is how it creates this kind of back and forth in the community that, man, if you don't have a medical card and you're just adult use, pro adult use, that you're not as good as. And then for others on the other side to think that the medical program's a joke. And I think those types of divisions and what we're trying to do ultimately harm us as a cannabis community. And, I think of all these events that we have going on in Maryland and in DC. I'm going to go back down to the National Cannabis Festival this year. And some of them feel, I think, very rec-like if you've ever been to other states. However, when I go to those events, right, I consume my cannabis so that my anxiety is less and I can enjoy. And I do think there's also, in those moments of fun, you're using it a little bit like you would maybe a glass of wine or a drink as you go out to have a good time with your friends. And I don't actually think there's anything wrong with either of those. I think that, again, like causing that division, saying one is better for the community, one is better for you, doesn't help us move any kind of movement along. And in our episode coming up, there are some things that we talk about, including the cultural capital of the cannabis community. And Josh says it so clearly about how we have an opportunity to do things so differently. We have all the opportunity in the world if we can remember how very special this plan is. And so yesterday I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw the perfect example of what cultural capital the cannabis community has. Oh my God, that is so hard for me to say. I have to like even slow down. And so I have complete permission to share this from Connie Teeter. So let me just pull it up so I can read it most accurately. So she is from Mount Savage, Maryland, and she posted yesterday at 8:24 a.m. So I'm a recovering heroin addict. I'm sharing this because I know there are more of you out there, and I'm not afraid to own up to it in hopes that I can help someone else out. I've been having terrible cravings lately. I moved into Cumberland recently, and it's everywhere. My neighbor sells it. After talking about it with my bud tender at Grow West, I was told that beta-caryophyllene helps with cravings, so I picked it up, and these 2 new shatters I got, they're helping. Both are tasty, too. By the way, I've been 5 years clean. So I don't know Connie, although I've seen her like in this women's cannabis group. And I stopped and I like thought about how beautiful that moment is. That Connie, who's moved away from maybe a support group, but has moved away and has put herself in a place where she's surrounded by the thing that she had such trouble with, but because she has created a community. And I know she gets together with a group of women, I think every other week or every week. I'm sorry, Connie, if I got that wrong. She's created community and a support system around her to help her through this. And because she is so open and honest, when you look through these comments, there are people who thank her for that little bit of information. There are those who praise her. There are those who know exactly what she's going through. And I thought that is what the cultural capital of the cannabis community is. Something about living your best life or having connection, which is, you know, really the biggest thing when you think about this, like why the cannabis community, when we get together, it feels so good. It's because we're connecting with one another. One of the most principal things about connection is your ability to be authentically yourself. And I've known that. I mean, you guys have watched me do podcasts on trying to be my authentic self and tell all my secrets and do that. And so I know this from firsthand experience. And what Connie is able to do and what many people in the cannabis community are able to do is to be authentic in themselves and have power in that authenticity so that it drives connection. And then we continue to spread that. This isn't feelings we get everywhere. We talk about it. We mention it when we go to events. Andre mentions it on the podcast at how different a cannabis event is versus one where just alcohol is served, and how people connect and they make friends, and people don't sit around often by themselves for too long. And I just think that is the thing that we must protect at all cost, right? Like, it's all going to work out. We're going to have great medicine. The science is going to catch up to it. I believe the testing is going to be above and beyond any of our wildest dreams for keeping things safe for us. That's all going to work out. The thing that I feel needs the most protecting is our community and how we engage with one another and how we love one another and how we cheer one another on, even with post admitting something to a group of women like a heroin addiction. I applaud you, Connie. I support you. I think your example out there in Cumberland is going to be amazing for that community. And that's what we do. We are different. If we can hold on to that and we can come together and we can put whatever little weird things aside when it comes to a division of a community, whether you choose to have a medical card, whether you choose to purchase it from your best friend, whether you choose to grow it at your house, it is all the same thing. We all love cannabis, and it all helps us, and it all serves us, and so we all need to serve each other with that. And I think that was, as I sat there at Spark last night, the biggest takeaway I got was how we need to come together. We need to show legislation how to make legislation on cannabis so that we can protect our culture. I am super excited that we get to have this episode with Josh and Andre. We recorded this back in early December. Right now, Josh is currently working at the Jamaican Medical Cannabis Coalition, and Andre not only has GTAC security in the cannabis industry, but he also has a lawn service as well as many other endeavors that he is putting out there in the world to help individuals who have charges that don't allow them to get jobs. And so I'm thankful for these two friends. I am thankful for you, and I am especially thankful for our sponsors who allow us to do this week in and week out. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Hi everyone, it's Jill Franquelli, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Mary Jane. I'm so excited to have two of my very good friends here today, Josh Casson and Andre Savoy. Thank you guys so much for coming.
It's a pleasure.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
Jill.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
So just a little history how I met these two, and we don't really have a topic to talk about. I think it's always been kind of a dream of mine to get a microphone in a room when the three of us are together, because we just love to talk about amazing things. But Josh, I met you while working at Curaleaf.
You did.
Trying
I
to sell
that
ads.
First time with your partner from Mary Jane in Maryland in that little room, and I was just like, "Who is this lovely, incredible lady?" Your vision for the industry was just amazing. Yeah.
I just remember thinking, like, man, he came all the way over here to like get into cannabis in the U.S. What was that decision, like, real quick?
Yeah, so, in England, right, we just have legalized medical cannabis, but we're quite far behind the American regulatory framework, right? Going back to the 90s, you had California legalizing medical cannabis, and you've done these state experiments. And so once I realized that that's the industry I wanted to work in and to really change lives, it was a kind of no-brainer. Now, my mom hasn't forgiven me, but I'm working on it day by day and, miss them a lot. But just had this amazing experience being in this country, so many interesting people. And because it's led by state kind of examples, there's a lot of uniqueness to each industry. And so we're really able to figure out what works best for patients, for the industry, and how can we use this plant to the best of its abilities. Yeah, it's just such an exciting industry, and it brings people together. And here to my right is Andre. And so I met you, you did do security at my events, but you also, are just an entrepreneur galore. Every time I talk to you, you have like a new business. So you have GTAC security, and then what else?
So we got GTAC security. We provide prominent physical security for cannabis dispensaries. We also have Savoy outdoor services. We pretty much provide affordable residential landscaping and outdoor services, gutter cleaning, and stuff like that. Then we also have A+A services, which is what we use to contract with like the city, bigger companies, and we hold our end of the agreements up with them. So we just trying to, my main goal is to basically provide a place for people to work in fields that they never would have had the chance to work in, and just, I go out and get the work, and then I supply the people and connect on that level. And what community are you looking to reach? Because this is actually kind of near and dear to my heart, because you're just not looking to build a company. You're looking to change people's lives. Exactly. So I'm more so focused on second chance. Yeah. I won't say second class citizens is what they would probably label us as, but second chance individuals who may or may not have made some mistakes or just didn't have the best of luck in their past. And then, now there's this guy coming along who doesn't, it doesn't matter. I'm just looking at the future, and if we can get you to flourish in a way that you can do, because I love discovering second, hidden talents.
Yeah.
If I have a guy and we're out doing like a roofing job and he's packing the truck or loading the dumpster, the roll off, and he's like making it so efficient, saving us money. I'm like, you might have a thing for logistics, and let's get you in touch with some logistics people, and then like the people I end up networking with end up being great people, and I can be able to pass that on, and then with my recommendation, they can find a career out of breaking out of that statistic level that they were classified in.
What caused you to hop into the cannabis industry?
So I'm 28 right now. When I was 21, I was working at Wendy's. I hate it. Can I cuss?
You can cuss all you want.
I fucking hated that job. And no disrespect to the fast food chain I worked at.
They're not an advertiser, right?
Right. They're not a sponsor.
No,
okay, good.
They're not a sponsor.
I fucking hated working at Wendy's, and I was working 5 p.m. to about 2 a.m. I was in college. I was going to Towson University, and I closed, and it fucking sucked. And it was like we had a lot of rough nights, and we had these guys that used to come by and they would just stop to eat lunch, and they delivered money. They drove money trucks, and I just one day, just by out of curiosity, I asked, how do I get involved? And they're like, you got to be 21 and with a clean record. So I applied one night, and then I actually had an interview the next day, and then 7 days later I started, and I delivered like $4 million to Ocean City, like a week after me just applying. And then after that I worked up, and then I ended up government contracting and working with different entities, offers from the Secret Service and stuff like that. And I just going through that field, it was a lot of money, but you just felt like a drone.
Yeah.
There was no place of fulfillment. I mean, I was making pretty good money at 23, and I was just like, this has got to be more to life than this. Most people that I work with retired to these jobs. It was just so, lackadaisy. It was just chill. And I was like, I don't feel like, my ambition, I just felt like there was more I could be doing. And then I just, one day scrolling through Indeed or something, and I seen a cannabis job pop up for security-related services. I inquired about it, got the job, and it was just like, whoa, the impact that my, just me being there, being like that patient encounter, the front line, it just was like impactful to go home knowing that like someone came in just totally freaking out, and just to talk to them and calm them down while they waited 5 or 6 minutes to be checked in, and then come back and remember me by name. I never, I was always just officer number, blah, blah, but someone to come back and say, hey, Andre, how you doing? And how's this? And it was just fulfillment. And then it was like, I could see myself doing, utilizing my skills in this area.
I mean, I think that's probably something you both experience working in a dispensary.
Sure.
It's kind of like when I go to Starbucks, I go to the Starbucks I go to because the people there, they make me feel amazing. And I know them by name, and they know me by name. And so you probably experience that with patients as well.
Definitely. And I think the important part of the reason behind that is, one, you have that amazing experience, you feel comfortable. But we have to remember there's so many patients out there who didn't know what cannabis was.
True.
We grew up with such propaganda right throughout our whole lives, and then all of a sudden it's legal. If you're able to put a nice face, someone like Andre with a beautiful little smile, and he says hi, of course you're going to go in, you're going to feel like, actually this is, it's about destigmatizing the whole process. And we have to remember there's a lot of elderly patients out there, and if they're able to come in and feel comfortable and like this is totally normal, which it is, I think that builds so much capital behind the industry, and it's so important that not everybody tends to focus on it, which surprises me. Right. But when we were working at Cureleaf, it was a real experience, I think, putting behind it.
I mean, to touch off of what Josh said, I mean, at the ground basis, and this is a true story, I literally had a patient come into the lobby. She had just got certified, and I did my initial greet, hello, how you doing? And she freaked out. And, she didn't get to the window yet because I had to physically open the door because it was the way the security system was. And she came in and she's like, my doctor told me this is what I need. I've been on this, and that many pills all these years, and I still haven't found relief. And, my doctor finally gave in and told me I should try this system. And she came in and she looked around and she had like an episode. She's like, I can't be here. And I'm like, why do you feel like that? She's like, because, she was older. She's like, growing up, all my life I've heard this was devil's lettuce, Satan's flower. This is, you don't do this. You're not supposed to do this. The churches, my parents. And then to get to that point, now her doctor is suggesting it, and she couldn't deal with that dilemma. So she actually walked out. Maybe about a week and a half later, she came back and just was able, but just remembering me and just me trying to talk to her, she was able to sit down. We checked her in. I actually had Josh come out in the lobby and like talk to her about, you know, you don't have to get high.
Yeah.
You know, we can talk about what you did, and we can find a custom medicating plan that can actually help what you're dealing with. And that was the turning point for me, where I feel like me literally being security, just being at the front line, and like that impact made a big difference. And that's what gave me the fulfillment that I went home that night knowing this woman went home with satisfaction.
Yeah.
And
I mean, was it shocking to see how scared people were? Because I was I was scared, and that shocked me. Like, I was like, man, I'm stressed out. And when I go to a new dispensary that I haven't been to, I'm still a little nervous. Like, it's almost like, are they going to like me? Like, I don't know.
It's
like, why do I feel...
I was always watching people running to their car after they picked up their little baggies.
Tucking the bag.
Yeah, like, nobody sees me.
Almost like they did something wrong, and it's like, hey.
Yeah, it definitely is shocking, I'd say. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But once you work in the industry and you're able to see, you know, patients' lives change, it's somewhat sad to see that, you know, the stigma's still there slightly, and there's a lot more work to be done. You know, just legalizing it isn't enough, right? It takes the community, whether they're patients, physicians, dispensary workers, to work together to get to that point where we can finally say, you know, it's totally okay and normal. And, you know, I don't think medical cannabis is for everybody, but for people who go down that route, it can honestly change their goals and their quality of life.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about sending that message that this is possible, not to pressurize people. I think that goes against what the industry is all about, but to give them that option and to say, you can be our friend here. And that's what we really try to build at a dispensary like Curaleaf is, you know, we're all friends here, and we want to help you help yourself. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's about connection, right? So I just experienced this with my dad. Obviously, you would think everybody in my life would be so pro-cannabis, but my dad's been kind of the one that's been lagging behind, and probably the one that needs it the most with what his conditions is with pain and some spine and back issues. So it wasn't until he met with someone else and heard their story. Okay. And so I had him do an evaluation with Olga, who's the cannabis nurse. Okay. And over the summer, she had a barbecue explode on her, and so she has burn up on her hands. So what she doesn't know is that my dad, from the waist down, is completely burned from an accident when he was younger. So, I mean, like, burn scars.
Sure.
And my dad, like, I could tell he noticed something about her, and he kept, like, eyeballing our hands, and I was like, oh, God, what is he going to say? Like, what is going to come out of his mouth?
Dad.
Yeah, literally, like, these are my friends. Be cool, Dad. And, you know, he's just like, why do you have that on your hand? And she explained it. And when she went through it and she showed him, like, her hand, which I think for anyone who's been burned is very hard to do when you do that, and explained what she'd used on it, I saw something change in my dad, and he was like, my legs are burned too. Yeah. And then when we were driving home, he said to me, I wonder how much better my legs would have looked if I had access to this. Sure. And so she went and navigated, and so we're in the process of getting his card now, because somebody else shared their story, and I think that's why, like, it's so important for us to talk about it.
Agree.
Because it changes someone's mind. I couldn't change my dad's mind. I couldn't. It took Olga, who I'd have never met, for her to be able to share her story about a burn to get through to my dad, so he could have, like, a better quality life and get off of opioids, you know?
So that's pretty much what you do. It's just that connection, that relativeness, because a lot of people that we all encounter, no matter what role we play, all are, you know, everyone's similar, but you know, we got all of these things, these classes, these, you know, these what's the word, where you keep people, like, separate, you know, we got all of these, like, systems in place, and these you know, prejudices against each other, you know, for, you know, different reasons, you know. And then when you meet someone who's like, hey, you know, we don't look alike, we probably never would have spoke 2 words in a grocery store, but, you know, we have this thing in common, and it's helping you, maybe, you know, and you could have told your dad 1,000,000 times to try it, but just to see someone familiar, the familiarity.
Exactly.
Can you familiar?
I can't say the word either. We all know what he means. The sameness of us all.
Can you spell it out for us?
Naughty spelling bee.
But no, you're totally right. I mean, I think that's it. Connection is what matters. So I remember when we were hiring for the dispensary, we had, you know, a range of people coming in, but what we really wanted to focus on is what would it be like for them to interact with the patient? Can they share their stories? And we had a number of employees, if not most of them, who were patients as well, from, you know, smaller issues to quite serious ones. And you could tell as soon as somebody comes in and talks to them, they're like, I'm not alone in this. And I think that's one of the most special elements of the cannabis industry, right? One of the reasons I wanted to get involved is, of course, it's a business, money's to be made and whatnot, but I think it's so much more than that, right? It's sharing that fundamental human experience and then molding that into a business where you can change lives and take a lot out of it. And some of the stories I've heard are really sad, and I've had patients pass away, but if we're able to come together and just exist as humans, I think we can set an example for other industries and other parts of life, and really use this as an opportunity to be leaders in business.
So, Josh, you started in the DC market, right, with the
marijuana policy project.
So, was cannabis legal down there when you were there? Yeah, right?
It was in this weird
in the weird DC way.
Yeah,
so
I have to say that. Legal.
DC. What was being in that and working in the marijuana policy?
Sure.
Like, what were some of the experiences there that kind of shaped your attitude to now? Like, I imagine you didn't come this enlightened about kind of your thoughts about what it was.
Yeah, so, just to give a bit of context, right?
Yeah.
So, as you said, used to work in the finance industry until I did my master's in economics. I'm a big nerd for economics. I could bore your faces off with it. But it was during that master's thesis where we focused on the cannabis industry, worked with some great fellow students, and we analyzed the Washington state cannabis market.
Oh, wow.
And I was really coming in from a data perspective, right? Okay. And, at that time, this was 2016, 2017. We just had legalization in Washington and Colorado. The academic kind of side of things hadn't caught up. And so we said, this is a really unique opportunity to analyze the data and put things together. And once I started reading into it, I fell in love with the industry in whole, right? The community aspect, the potential to change the way in which businesses work. And so I knew I had to get into it. And I started with the marijuana policy project as, it's probably going to sound really lame, but I had this little checklist in my mind, right, of things I wanted to do in the industry. And I wanted to work in the lobbying side of things and, generating policy, and then work in dispensaries and then move on up from there. So long story short, Jill, working in DC was fantastic. We worked on state and federal projects. So I was with the communications team, and it really gave me that amazing oversight into a number of different markets, whether they were progressing to their first vote on legalization, maybe they were changing laws, or in general just destigmatization. It was incredible, and I worked with some fantastic people there. And, I love DC. I was born just outside of it, actually, in Alexandria. So it was kind of a circle of life moment for me. I know, right?
So this is what I'm going to just stop that. Because when you sent your bio over, I was like, he was born in the U.S.?
I'm a U.S. citizen. I believe
I was
red, white, and blue.
Literally, I was like, when? But you were here until 8, right?
I was born to British parents.
Yeah.
My dad worked in DC, and I was here from 0 to 4 years old.
Yeah.
Then in England, 4 to 8, but most of my life in Qatar in the Middle East, from 8 to 18. So
in
I don't
4
feel very
years,
British,
but in 4 years you got the accent.
Well, it's funny. So when I was born, I had the thickest American twang. I'd say like hot dog. My parents must have been stressing out. That's probably why we moved back to the UK.
I know. We've known you and we don't know this.
Do tell.
Hot dog.
So it was only when I moved back to England for those 4 years that I finally picked up the British accent, which I do like. It's worked well for me so far.
It does. We know what you do with that accent.
But it was amazing to be back in DC. Like I said, circle of life, kind of old stomping ground, and doing something I never thought I would do. Just to talk about Canada and my experiences there, it's a very strict state. I would say it's one of the more liberal Middle Eastern countries, but that's on a scale where, right, liberal doesn't mean so liberal.
No.
Right.
So there was no cannabis, right? If you got caught with cannabis or smoking, you'd be deported from the country, and so would the rest of your family. And so it's something I always grew up having this fear of, almost. And it was nice to then be working in DC, working for, cannabis patients across the nation, and to realize that it's not scary and it shouldn't be. It's something that can be so wonderful from that bird's eye view.
Did you grow up with the stigma of cannabis? Like, I grew up very religious, so this was a big deal for me.
So growing up, I grew up in Baltimore, West Baltimore. It was not so much of a stigma. It was just more so of a thing that it was just all around me. Everyone that I knew smoked, and I just didn't. My parents they weren't the type, that I could come home and just be like, hey,
Yeah.
And there was one day I recall coming home from school. I got off the bus and my neighbor had his basement door open. He was my age and he was like smoking. He's like, hey, come down here. And I'm like, what's up? He's like, try this. And I said, oh yeah, I'm down. And I smoked it. And like 2 seconds later, my mom's like, bam, bam. And I like shoot it up his steps. That was the back door. I shoot it out the front door. I came in the front door and I'm like, yeah, what's up? Just got home. She's like, what were you doing? I was just like, nothing. It was just like the goofiest feel. But there was not like a punishment or anything in place. It was more so like, it was almost like a community thing. Everyone did it. It was kind of like to relax, Everyone say, oh, I'm just having a rough day. I just need to smoke. And I didn't never see it as a, such a terrible thing to do. I didn't see, the commercials back then, when I was growing up was like, oh, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. And it was like, these aren't my friends though. Like they're pretty cool, but I just never really got into it back then. Yeah. But to see when I, started working in the industry, like how many people took it that serious, that was news to me. Sure. So that was the shock, coming to this, seeing people literally like have breakdowns and like moral dilemmas. They sit there and literally have to talk to their creator, like, forgive me. And I'm like, it's just weed, I've never seen no one do anything crazy on weed. And my thing is always that like I could do more damage on a fifth than I ever would on an eighth.
Yeah, it's true.
I've never seen no one just, smoke and then just go do something crazy. Yeah. But, my dad, he used to drink a lot. And, like, I've seen what comes with that, So I never seen it as a bad thing. Mm-hmm. So I was actually, happy that it did get passed. And people were able to legally, not lose a job because of something so small. Like, hey, you got caught with a bag.
Yeah. I didn't really think about, like, I look at it in my instance, like the religious to overcome, but I wasn't actively religious per se when I started using cannabis. So it wasn't as different as maybe someone who is still going to church, who is just like, I mean, how do you think you talk someone through that? Or do you just have to let them figure it out on their own, tell them stories?
It's pretty vivid because... Ruth that I've told you about. My neighbor, she's 87 years old. She lived above me when I lived
Lady take for the dinner dates.
Exactly. We go dinner dates. She was an older woman and, she's big in the like AA meetings and like social work, and that was her whole life. And like, I take her to doctor's appointments and like the form is asking like, hey, do you have a history of like, drug use, alcoholism? She's like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. And I'm like, the form asks how many times do you drink? She would say twice a year. And I say, if that qualifies, then sign me up, So, being with people like Ruth, and I was trying to tell her because she's in a lot of pain because of her arthritis and her cancer that spread. And I was trying to, when I got into the industry, I was like, Ruth, maybe you should try some of this stuff. And I was giving her articles on Eric Stamper. He had an article about how cannabis helped him overcoming like alcoholism and stuff. I read it in one of the magazines, and I showed her, and she's like, "That's bullshit." And I'm like, she's like, "No, I know,
sweet little 87-year-old."
And I'm just like, Ruth, it's really not what you think it is. It's not. She's like, I've dealt with these people, and I'm like, Ruth, it's really not. And to see someone like that, her dad was a priest. She grew up in the church in Towson, and her whole life she's like, I don't, every time we go to the doctor, tell them I'm allergic to narcotics. Some people just can't get it around.
Exactly.
They can't get around that fence. And I think that a lot of things that you do, and a lot of people that we've talked to, kind of, we didn't necessarily put them over the fence, but we just showed them a way through the fence.
Yeah,
sure.
And
I think that's what it's all about, right? Understanding that not everybody can immediately be attracted or convinced, same as your dad.
Yeah.
But just setting, everyone who works in the industry and, all of the patients out there, setting yourself as a point of information and resources, right? Because questions will eventually arise in a lot of people's minds. And if you've come across as friendly, not too pushy, you're not like, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, just, hey, here's how I've experienced it, here's what I've seen in my friends and family. When they have a question, they can come talk to you. And those are the best ways, I think, to get the message out. Because not everyone's going to try it at the end of the day. Whether you're a Ruth or you have a different background story, it's not for everyone. And that's okay. Yeah. But it's using that, I always like to say, you know, the cannabis industry has such vast amounts of cultural capital. We've taken, in the first time in history, a product that's been illegal and stigmatized for so long, and then kind of flipped it on its head, right? And it gives us the opportunity, which is to do things differently, which is why I think business can be run differently, and we can really look to focus business on the art of helping people rather than, you know, just making a quick buck. And so it's, you know, living that story for yourself, being reliable, friendly, and when they need that information, you're there to be able to give it to them.
So what are you most excited about for the future of cannabis? I'll ask you both that. You can take a second to think about it if you need to.
Well, you know, a lot of things excite me, Jill.
Yes, I do
I'm very
know that.
easily excited, to be quite honest with you.
So tell me 10 things that excite you. Go.
You know, I guess it depends. So currently working to build international cannabis markets, that excites me massively. I'm really interested in seeing the industry get to a point where we're crossing borders. You know, we're shipping product from the best places to grow to where it needs to be. But really what I would like to see is, you know, it's not pure excitement. It's excitement mixed with a little bit of fear, which is my favorite way to be excited, right? It's that we have something so special in the cannabis industry. And as I said, we have that cultural capital to maybe do things a bit different. And if we're able to truly follow our hearts on it and keep pushing for that, I think we really have the potential to change the world.
Yeah,
right? And I don't say that lightly. We can change the way other businesses do their business, and by being that example. But at the same time, where the fear comes in is that that's not guaranteed, right? We could easily turn into the next CVS, you know, as the example I always use. And it's up to us right now to be setting the seeds. As we've seen more capital flows into the industry, you've got some pretty serious institutional investors at the gates, either invested already or about to. And we've got to remember that at its core, there should be something different, right? And it's exciting to me to see how that develops. You know, we're taking an industry that didn't exist and doing everything for it, you know, like you do your amazing community work in magazines and all of these podcasts. You've got like banks being developed around it, marketing. It's exciting. You know, we have this opportunity to do things uniquely and reflective of how we feel as a society we should treat people. So I would say, getting to that level is what is exciting the most for me.
What about you? And then I'm going to ask more questions.
I'll say, first of all, I should have probably went first. Josh just went here.
That's why you and I are sitting on this side. We're together on this, Andre.
But I'll say, secondly, on a much more ground level, boots to the ground type of thing, especially being, you know, security at dispensaries, I'm more like first level encounter. You know, encounters are the first kind, whatever you call it. I think I'm more so excited to see, even growing up in the communities I grew up in, is that people not being punished.
Yeah.
People not being afraid. People not being, I don't know what you call the thing when, like, they get hooked on, like, pills from...
addicted. Becoming addicts.
Just to see these things not have to happen, because I've literally experienced this my whole life. You know, I grew up in Baltimore City, so like
you've seen this like firsthand.
I've seen it firsthand. So to be able to see like my friends not go to jail, to see, you know, because they're selling weed, because not only because I'm saying they could sell on the street because it's criminal, but for them to actually capitalize on what they really stand by.
Yeah.
You know, not everyone who sells weed is just some big gangster.
Correct.
To be be truthful. Not everyone who sells weed is some big kingpin, you know, with a Glock in the, you know, army. It's just people who just trying to get by but really love it. They don't have a way in. They may have a slight record. They can't get a job.
Correct.
But to see that these walls being torn down, these, you know, these floodgates opening, to see the market change, you know, to see less pills out there. I mean, my dad alone, you know, he has his issues. And I signed him up, you know, I talked to him about it, and he ended up getting a card. And I lived with this guy for like 3 months a few years ago, and he would wake up. I slept in the living room on a twin air mattress, and he had a 1-bedroom, a studio. So I was only like maybe 5 feet away from him through the thin wall. And he would wake up in the middle of the night screaming. You know, he was in the military and the Navy, and he would just have these outbursts, and it would just scare me. You know, he's like yelling and cussing, "Fuck you, I'll kill you, and I'm not going to do it with you." And I'm just like, what the hell is going on with this guy? You know, we used to party together and drink and play instruments together. And like, I never knew that side of him because I was going through some things a few years ago, and I stayed with him, and he would do this frequently. And I'm just like, that's not normal.
Yeah.
And they would be at the top of his lungs around 2, 3 a.m. I was too scared to approach him. I would just lay there quietly, you know, scared me. But then moving out and, fast forward 2 years later, I'm working at Curaleaf and I'm watching people like Josh and, a lot of his colleagues talk to people who are dealing with similar things.
Yeah.
And that's when, like I said, it clicked to me, like this is a whole community of people who would have never talked to each other, people who would have never been together, things that would have never came out in the general public sense. If we were all at the bowling alley together, you wouldn't be sitting there telling me about your type 1 or type 2 or, PTSD or bipolar, whatever you're dealing, it would have never came up. Sure. Society would have told you, you have to act this way in this environment. Yep. My dad has no filter. He's going to be himself wherever we are, but then being able to identify that and just internalizing it, but then seeing it, in various patients and then asking, so what did you suggest for this person? Because I obviously talk to anyone that came in and, they tell me about what's going on. So what did you end up giving? I'm like, well, let me try that for him. And then to see the whole change in his life, fast forward a year after that, me and him started a business together because now he can comfortably be in public. I don't have to worry about him. He can calm down. Yeah. I mean, literally, like, to be raw, we used to work together a few years ago, and we'd be, like, literally at a customer's house doing some type of service, and he just have you know how that works.
Snap.
He would just snap, and I was ready to get the hell out of here. Fuck you. Fuck them kids. I'm like, whoa. Like, I'll talk him to the car. Like, I'll take him to the car. Yeah. I'm apologize. I'm usually doing stuff for free, but now I'm like, did you take your medicine? Yeah. He's like, hey, I'm good.
I'm solid.
I'm good. I'm solid. Let's go back and get some more of that shit. I'm straight. But and it's not even that he's getting high.
He just feels normal.
He's feeling normal.
Yeah.
He can,
being himself.
He can be himself. The dad I know. Because people see my dad, and they really get intimidated. It's like Navy.
That's amazing.
A lot of years, so he doesn't have any filter. He'll just straight up tell you what it is, and that. That's not what I want to portray to people, but for him to be able to have that way to just exist. And I think that's been the greatest thing now. Like, we can successfully, we can work in public. I don't have to drop him off at 12 o'clock because, he then got grumpy at lunchtime. He can work all day now.
I think that, like, protecting the culture ensures that type of learning continues to happen, right? Like, I just think when I think about this community, I think, man, they saved my life. Like, meeting people who, when you go into a room, you're not freaked out, where you're going to connect with individuals and do that. And I think it's something that's so unique.
It's super
to like this community. Like, I don't even. And we talk about it all the time. I don't know how to explain it to people. Like, you'll come to an event and most people come solo. Mm-hmm. And they've never met anyone before. And they come happily.
Where else do you see that, huh?
And they come in and people say hi to you when you walk in. Mm-hmm. And if someone sees somebody sitting there by themselves, it's not that doesn't happen. It's just very short time between someone goes over there and talks to them.
Sure.
And I think it's all cannabis. Like, I know that. I go to many events and it's not that way.
Yeah.
Well, this is how I like to explain it. I've worked security at many of your events, cannabis events, and I've also worked security at many, drinking events. When I tell you which one I prefer, let's just give you something to think about. You get 60 drunk guys in a bar, right? And someone bumps into the next guy. What do you guys think is going to happen?
Stop pushing on me. If you stop pushing on me, I'm not going to push on you.
Now let's get 60. No, you know what? Let's do one of your famous events. Let's get 300 people, all cannabis event, and you bump into this guy.
We're gonna have a hug,
and he turns around. And says, holy shit! What's up?
Yeah,
and I've seen that because obviously I'm at these events sober. And I'm keeping the eye. That's what we're supposed to do. We're walking through, making sure everything's, regulated perfectly. And I mean, I'll see these things like, holy shit. I'm on a walkie-talkie, like, guys, get ready, come over to the ballroom. And you'll see people bump, and it's like, oh, what's going on? What do you got? And it's just a change in just social things.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like,
I get what you're saying.
I don't know how to explain it. Like, I don't feel...
There's no words.
My confidence came because of this community.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think something so important is that this doesn't happen accidentally, right?
No.
It takes individuals to be like that. And it's something I think we should always be vigilant about. not that we're pushing our view of the cannabis industry onto other people, but know that it's almost like this special little flower we have to protect, we have to nurture it and grow. And it's when we start to stop thinking about these things that this other kind of nastier, more evil culture can come in and take things over. It's up to all of us at the end of the day.
I mean, I just can't imagine. I hate going to the pharmacy.
Yeah.
Like, no one's really nice. Mm-mm. Like, they barely, like, look at, and I understand, like, there's a lot of issues with the American workforce, so we won't get into that. But it's not the same as when you walk into a dispensary.
Oh, no.
And 100%. You, like, talk to the person, or then you meet other people. I'm not chit-chatting. Like, when I'm checking out in the dispensary, I'm listening to that person. Yeah. And then we'll try to talk. And I've walked out many times talking to someone who I didn't know, like, going into that. Yeah. That's not what happens when I go and pick up my meds.
Yeah, like walks out. Hey, what'd you get?
Heartburn meds?
Does not happen.
Yeah, that's totally because you're not like
some Advil.
NyQuil. Some where it's just maybe it's
cough
more
syrup,
interesting.
Hemorrhoid cream. Want some?
We can cut that part out.
No, everybody knows you have hemorrhoids now, Andre. Sorry. Everybody knows.
But you're totally right, Jim.
My dad.
Yeah, can pin it all.
Dad's gonna beat your ass when he finds out you told the secret.
I'll just give him a pre-roll. Safe. Threat neutralized.
So on like an international level and on a local level, like how do we protect this culture? How do we make sure it doesn't get regulated to the point where we get no emotion attached to the person who's giving us our medicine, or we're unable to have a connection to it?
So I would think first would be to identify the actual threat.
Yeah.
And the only thing that could threaten that, would be, it could easily come down to like, big companies or, state regulations. And, you have to really pay attention to the fine print because it always changes.
True.
Because in Maryland, this is the first. So like the presidents, it's like there is no situations where they can really, defer to if a situation happened. Everything's literally being written as we speak. Like any instance, any situation is all happening in real time.
Yeah.
So they look at other states. Obviously, they analyze the data, but there still is no precedent. So I think the best way on a local level is to make sure that when people come in, everyone's following, guidelines. They're being compliant. They're not, there's no shady or, funny business happening where, the state feels they need to interfere. If we can keep everything, operating, perfectly and smoothly and just, compliantly, we don't have to worry about intervention. But on an international level, more corporate level, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I definitely agree with Andre. Cannabis is one of the most highly regulated industries, and we have to respect that at the end of the day. We always have to put that first and foremost. And, I don't think there's any one solution to say, here's how we protect this culture and help it to grow. No one person is going to fix it, which is scary on the one hand, but also exciting because we get to rely on each other. And I would say, I always look at the cannabis industry by what are its building blocks? How do we get this complete pyramid? Well, it's a dispensary here, an organization, magazine there. And I always see that the basic building block is the dispensary. And that's where it's got to start, right? Yeah. And, having worked and opened a dispensary, it can be tough. These people work incredibly hard.
It's retail. Like, in the end, like, it's very...
People forget that, right? It's still retail. You still sometimes have a bad customer who might get a little mad, or you do long hours. It's tough.
Yeah.
So I would say to those people, either if you want to work in a dispensary or you already are, just take time, every couple weeks, every month, just take a step back, because sometimes it can become really normal. It can become like a normal job, which it is, right?
Yeah.
You're still earning, you're paying rent from the paycheck you get, but always take time to reflect and say, you know what, this is special. And tomorrow I'm going to go in, I'm going to bring that lovely energy back. No matter what else is happening, if your manager is being a bit of a dick, or you've had a bad experience, just always go back and say, I saw that. Always say, I can start from fresh.
Conference room, right 5 minutes. This guy.
And it's about reflecting on that specialness, right? Now, the other side to the coin is, at a corporate level, how do we change things? And You know, that's something quite difficult, I would say, that not everyone can fight against. You know, you have a lot of people coming in from all other industries who maybe aren't interested in the specialness of cannabis, and they just see, you know, dollar signs or whatever, and that's fine for them. But we have to rally and group and communicate for those who think this is special. And, you know, it's never going to be easy, and it's not going to be, you know, we do one thing, we've won. You know, it's a constant battle, fighting for the heart of the industry, making sure whichever position you are in the industry, whether you're down at the bottom or up at the very top, making that choice for yourself and saying, this matters to me, and I'm going to live that. I'm going to live that brand of what the cannabis industry can be.
Okay, so like what Josh is saying, you know, you got those executives and those companies that come in and say, hey, we can make money here. We can build models here. We can put, you know, dollars into this and make this. They only see that. They only check the reports. You know, they're not in the dispensary level. They're literally in the office, maybe out of state. Maybe they're in a hotel at BWI. Who knows? But they don't see the, you know, day-to-day interactions. But then people like Jill comes along and you have this platform and people share their stories.
Yeah.
That's where the impact comes. That's when petitions get signed and say, hey, say for example, the state says, you know what, we don't like this program.
Yeah.
But then you have literally, how many people have you know, encountered and shared their stories with?
Yeah, a lot.
How many people come to your events? You can have that, you know, that's when, this, you know, you give them platform. You provide the mic. And these patients can say, you know, because of this situation, this is what my life is now compared to what it used to be. I mean, you can look through any article of any of your publications and see, you know, a big change in people. And I think that's pretty much how we fight it. It just comes back to you.
Definitely.
Damn it.
Honestly, just having that platform.
Good luck, Jill.
Well, I think, you know, stories change minds. And when you have executives sitting up making decisions when they're not based on real life, that really helps them, right?
Right.
I mean, I think all of us have been very lucky to see amazing things in the cannabis industry. And I think all of us know people who get to see amazing things. And what I've noticed is people who forget that it's special. And you're seeing a beautiful grow. And I'm freaking out because I'm still like a newbie at it. But then I see people who've been around a long time that just, you know, it's just another grow, another tour, another day. And I remember saying to myself, like, I hope I never lose this excitement for even the littlest thing that I ever get to do in this because this shouldn't be happening.
Thing, right.
Like, this is the great, it's surreal. Like,
you wake up almost every day like, wait, what am I going to do today?
Exactly.
And like, seriously, am I really?
And I like am so thankful for that. But I even need to remind myself, like, and we all do, like, this is not the norm. This is still so not normal for most of the world that, man, I shouldn't act like this is like every day.
To take it for granted.
And you know, I think something so important to do is start to cultivate that next generation of talent, right? So for anybody in the industry to really take that time to mold, you know, the next leader of the industry and to share with them how you felt it's special, because we're going to get to a point pretty soon over the next 10 years where people who are working in dispensaries, working in cannabis industries weren't there for legalization. And so it is going to be quite normal. And so taking the time to shape them and to really build them to care about cannabis for cannabis. And I would say, just as advice to anyone who does want to get into the industry, whether it's a couple of months, whether it's a year, is to work in the dispensary level, to see the patients. Is, for me personally, that's what changed my life, is seeing the patient stories and interactions, and it's incredible, I think.
What's one of the most amazing, like, turnarounds you've seen with the use of cannabis? Like, in a patient? I know, obviously, you can't say names, but like, what have you seen?
Seen a whole range from 4 years old to 94 years old. I mean, I love kids. You know, can't wait to be a dad myself, and those are always the stories that have touched me the most, whether it's autism, epilepsy. And, you know, they've gone down all the traditional medical options. Nothing's worked, and they came to us, and we've been able to just give them their kid back, whether it's their son, their daughter. They have that quality of life back. And you know, I ain't afraid to admit it. I've cried a lot in the dispensary, seeing those stories, and, you know, seeing someone come in 2 months later and they're totally different. And, you know, it's just it's a real blessing, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if you take the magic of that and you take it for what you get to see, that makes you a better person too. Like, if you really start to internalize, your empathy gets greater. You start to see like human connection. Like while you were talking about the kids, I was thinking, yeah, that kid's back. But I was just thinking, can you imagine the relief of the parents when, man, they're not having to deal with like one of the stories we wrote. Yeah, like an autistic kid who's extreme, like tears stuff down.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when they realize this works, like, what a relief. And that like makes me fight harder for that parent.
Exactly.
For that family member that needs that little bit of extra relief.
Because how many are out there who either are so stigmatized to the point that they don't want to get involved with medical cannabis or just don't know about it? I mean, there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people out there. And it's why I respect so much what you do, Jill, is putting those stories at the forefront. Because it's one thing to say, you know, the cannabis industry is happening, there's this, that, and that people. But I really share the passion you have in your heart from that individual story level. And I think that's what it needs.
You know, it brings it, realize, you know, it makes it real. You know, it's not just a number on a sales sheet. It's not just a statistic in a data system. It's like, no, this is, you know, Joe Smith. This is, you know, Joy Smith. This is their story.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, same question. The turning point for me, I mean, I have a lot of small talk being in the front line of a dispensary. And one woman walked in one day, and she just walked through the door, and she said 4. I said, hey, kind of feel you burning, you know? She said 4. I said, all right, you want to check it? I said, but, you know, what's that? She said, that's the number of medications I'm down to now. She said, when I first started coming to this dispensary, I was on 12 pills a day to stay alive. It's not like she said, you know, it wasn't like painkillers. No, it was like to stay alive. Yeah. She said, now I'm down to 4, and like the 4 were probably like vitamins. You know, it was just down to like basic. But that was it, 4. I'll never forget that number. She walked right through the door and said, 4. I'm like, we got 4 seconds? What's going on?
You're freaking out.
I'm like, all right. 3. And she's like, no, this is the number of medications that I now have to take. She said, I'm down from 12. I was taking 12 pills a day. She said, could you imagine? I said, I could not.
It's crazy.
And so stuff like, situations like that is definitely the turning point where you see what is done. I mean, I even have a patient at a different dispensary who comes in and gets very worked up. You know, him and his wife own a family business, and, you know, obviously it's stressful. Everyone who knows business is stressful.
Yeah.
And he's epileptic and he has seizures, and there was one time he recalled having, I think, 4 seizures in 60 minutes. You know, it was like getting to that point. He started coming to the dispensary, and he's like, yeah, man, you know, he's still him. You know, he doesn't come in and, you know, wear the crutch or anything, but he's just like, you know, I'm just getting this because it really helps. And he's like, I haven't had a seizure in 2 months. He's like, you know, the worst I was even with the medicine I got. He's like, I still had like up to 4 in 60 minutes. He said it scared my wife, scared my kids. He's like, with this, I mean, I'm cool. You know, and I was just like, that's great. You know, like amazing. I could not imagine, I have a cousin with the same situation. Sure. She couldn't drive. I have to drive her to the doctors just because she, you know, has an episode. So just to see people have a way to feel comfortable at life. Now, you know, like, they hit me up to go basketball. Let's go to the gym now. They're like, now I can go to the gym. My doctor cleared
I've
me.
never asked a pharmacist. Like, I've literally gone and had a drink with someone from a dispensary before, you know?
Right.
Like, there's no...
There's none of that. You're not going to, you know, play basketball with your pharmacist or the lab tech. You know, you're not doing that.
Yeah.
I think we get to see magic a lot. Like, miracles happen, really, right? Where people who just have come to the end of the rope, and we've seen, like, what a little plant can do. Definitely. And I think that's just why the 3 of us are here on Earth, right? So we continue to tell those stories and, you know, spread this. Yeah. Like, because we've seen it all happen. Like, I think we've been changed, each of us, greatly by being in this industry.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's work to be done. You know, I think there's still so much more we can do to grow and shape and never lose vigilance. But that's what keeps me going, Jill, is looking back to these stories and thinking someone you never would have met before, but you've changed their life in your own little way. And I think everyone who works in this industry, even if you don't see patients every day, you're still making a difference happens. And how often can you say that?
Yeah.
In any field, exactly. Yeah. And besides being hit on by a ton of old women, I would say I do see the
you know, you like that. Don't even. That is like, I'm looking good today. We know about you.
Okay, we'll take that one.
No, that's the hemorrhoid cream staying in. That's
No,
staying in.
this is one shot podcast. There's no editing. Did I not tell you that?
Is this live?
It is live in 2 months.
But no, like literally though, besides, you know, the older women coming in and, you know, bringing cookies and stuff, but you just see the change in people's lives have really been up. And even some people would really have some shitty cases, just to be real. I mean, forgive me for not sounding like I do care, but some people have some fucked up cases. Yeah. Straight up. And they come in and like first time meeting them and they're like, what's good about this morning? You know, good morning, what's good about it? Yeah. I got this, and that. And I'm like, I feel you, dog. You know, just hopefully we can help you. But coming back and they coming in and they're just like, well, you know what? You see some people I literally see every day. They'll literally make a trip to a dispensary every single day, whether it's, you know, pre-roll or some tap. Well, I don't know what they get, but but just to come back but to see the whole shift. I'm just like, this is a highlight of a day. My granddad, he used to go to the grocery store every day, talk to his cashiers. They go to the post office.
Community aspect.
That's their community aspect. And to see dispensaries become part of that.
It is. I believe that's 100%. A dispensary is fulfilling a need. And my brother even said, he was like, I would, if I was allowed to just sit and chill, I would go sit and chill at the dispensary because those are like his peeps. You know what I mean? Like you talk to him a little bit about cannabis. Like I think he wants to consume there too. So you know it's going another level for him. But yeah, I think like you get that great feeling and you do create a sense of community and you create connection with individuals who've not been able to create connection.
Exactly.
And which is why we get sicker. Is because we like become less and less connected
into yourself. Yeah.
You sit at home and he's like, doctors like, take these and call me in the morning. You know, they get to come back to the dispensary and say, hey, that really worked, or hey, I didn't like that. You know, what's wrong with it? I get to see that now. I've literally see people come day in, day out and just get to share, you know, what's going on with them, and sometimes they might not even be purchasing. But just to be part of that. I was going to the Walmart. I was going to the bank, and I just stopped on by and it's like, well, come on in. You know, how you doing? And that's pretty fun.
Yeah, I think really if I were to boil it down, my favorite part of it, and I think it sums it up, is the connection that we all have over one plant and all that it does. And I will be forever grateful that I met both of you and you've come into my lives because your passion alone for all of this helps drive me, and it helps drive the community. I appreciate all the work you've done and helped for me with events and just your brainstorming, Andre, and then literally the work you're doing on a worldwide level is just going to help us all. So thank you so much.
At you, Jill. You're such a lovely lady.
Oh, thank you.
Stop.
Okay, well, I'm going to wrap this up before I start blushing. So thanks again for coming, and thanks everyone for tuning in. And we will see you next time at Conversations with Mary Jane. Bye. Awesome. That is a wrap. Well done, guys.
Can I get a quick photo of us sitting down?